So here are some basic tips and tricks for doing your dimensional analysis. So we have some tips with conversions, a zero rule about where you need to put a zero with your decimals, and rounding. So with conversions, a way to remember some of these conversions, because there's a lot to memorize for your all's math test, is the more letters that are in your conversions with your units, the more numbers that unit has. So when we have grams to milligrams, we have 1 gram equals 1,000 milligrams. Milligrams has more letters, which has then the 1,000, the more numbers, where grams has less letters, and so it has the 1. So same for milligrams to micrograms. 1 milligram equals 1,000 micrograms. So micrograms has three letters. It's got more letters, which means it has more numbers, where milligrams has less letters, and so it just has one number. So we have milliliters. Milliliters is 1,000 milliliters to 1 liter, follows the rule again. And then for pounds and kilograms, though we don't have it as 1,000 to 1 anymore, the rule still applies. So pounds, we have 2.2 pounds to 1 kilogram. Pounds has more letters, and so it has more numbers, and then kilograms has less letters, so it has less numbers. Here's the other ones. They're conversions that we need to know, but they don't really follow these rules. So for ounces to milliliters, we have 1 ounce equals 30 milliliters. And then for milliliters to teaspoon, we have 1 teaspoon equals 5 milliliters. And then for milliliters to tablespoon, we have 1 tablespoon equals 15 milliliters. So another way for how these can be written is teaspoon can be a lowercase t, and then tablespoon here you see is an uppercase T. It also can be written as this, TBSP. So those are a couple different ways that you can see how that's written. There's not really any good tricks to remember these conversions. Okay, so our next one is zero rule. How we have the rule, it's written as be a leader, not a follower. So what that means is that when we have a number that's 0.5, if we just write 0.5 and we don't put a 0 in front of that, it looks like a 5. It doesn't look like, you can't see that decimal. So we always put a 0 in front. But if we have 2 as the answer, then if we write 2.0, it looks like a 20. So we cannot be a follower. We can't have a following 0 because that makes people misunderstand it. They might give a higher dose than they need to. So we want to always be a leader with a leading 0, not a follower with a trailing 0. Okay, last tip is with rounding. So with rounding, sometimes we're asked in our math questions to round to the 10th or round to the 100th, round to the whole number. So if we're rounding to the whole number, it's not going to have any decimal place. But if we're rounding to the 10th or 100th, when you think about 10 and 100, 10 has 1 0, 100 has 2 zeros. So when you're rounding to the 10th, we're going to do one number past the decimal point for 1 0, or for the 100th, we're going to do 2 numbers past the decimal place, which would be 2 zeros, like in 100. So let's say that we're rounding to the 100th. We're going to look at this number right here. First, we're going to make sure we know we need to round 2 numbers past the decimal place. So 1, 2. We're looking at this space right here. We need to round to this many numbers. Well, when I'm looking at 5 here, I need to look at its next door neighbor. Right here, is 7. We don't need to know what's going on down the street. We don't need to be nosy. We just need to look at the next door neighbor. So the next door neighbor to 5 is 7. Well, with our rule with rounding, 5 and above, give it a shove. So you're gonna round up. 4 and below, let it go. Let go of those numbers, keep everything the same. So 7 is 5 and above. We're gonna give it a shove. So we're gonna have 4.15, rounding it up, is gonna be 4.16. So we're rounding it up, we're giving it a shove. Now say that we did, if our number came out as 4.152, and we need to round it to the 100th. We would still look at this spot. We're gonna look at its next door neighbor, which is a 2. Well, 2 is 4 and below, so we're gonna let it go, which means that we would round it to 4.15. So that's kind of 2 examples on what you can see here if we're rounding to the 100th place.